Hi there everybody, this is David, and I can't help thinking that this could be it. We all know the hopium is strong with me whenever it comes to one of my favorite Final Fantasy games of all time, Final Fantasy IX. And there's been a lot of rumors about that remake. There's been a lot of things that have been said about it. There's been a lot of collaborations going on. There's been leaks. There's been retractions. There's been so much stuff going on with this, but ho-ho, we actually have good news in regards to it today, and I do want to tell you all about it, and I definitely do think it's worth the sub as you come and you join my party and you level on up with me. Thank you so much for your sub, your like, and your brand new hype. It helps me out a ton. So, we first heard about an anime adaptation of Final Fantasy IX years ago, back whenever there was rumblings and rumors of it being remade, and they were going to say, hey, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put out the remake alongside this anime adaptation. But then, you know, the anime adaptation kind of got canceled, kind of got swept under the rug. We didn't really hear anything about the remake. We didn't really know what was going on. Square Enix started doing this kind of reorganization and reshuffling, so it was just like, ugh, maybe this thing is gone. We don't really know. However, the Final Fantasy IX animated series Final Fantasy Black Mage's Legacy is now in production. The first season will consist of 10 episodes, each 22 minutes in length. It says that it's going to be following, bear with me, Amel, Colne, Luciola, Thea, Fala, and Doc, children of the hero BB. BB is Vivi's name in Japanese, so there you go. They're the last dark mages of the four continents. Today, they live happily in the city of Alexandria, guarded by its inhabitants, who are rather friendly, although some very curious. Unfortunately, this peaceful existence was not meant to last. One day, Colne discovers Mel, frozen like a statue, in the inn where he works. Could it be the tragic legacy of their father catching up with them? So this isn't a retelling of the events of Final Fantasy IX. This is more of just kind of like its own different story. But again, this is more Final Fantasy IX stuff coming up. So I also wanted to bring this to your attention if you're kind of out of the loop, if you don't know what's going on. There was an NVIDIA leak back in like 2022, I believe, and 8 different games were leaked that Square Enix was going to be working on. Of those 8 games that were leaked, 7 of them have come to fruition. We got the Chrono Cross remaster. We got the Final Fantasy VII remake. We got the Final Fantasy Tactics remaster. Kingdom Hearts 4, the new strategy game, which was Deifield Chronicle, Tactics Ogre remastered, and the unannounced card game, which was Voice of Cards, The Forsaken Maiden. The only one that we haven't yet gotten is the Final Fantasy IX remake. So we pretty much know that this leak is the real deal since, you know, everything came to be, except for this Final Fantasy IX remake. But now the anime is back, but the game still hasn't been announced. But let's look into this a little bit more. Last year, Yoshi P had a collaboration with Final Fantasy XIV as well as with Final Fantasy IX. It says, Yoshida announced at PAX East that the collector's editions of the Dawn Trail expansion for Final Fantasy XIV would include some extra items themed around Final Fantasy IX, prompting the director to elaborate that the reason behind all the references was a secret. After stating this, he reportedly zipped his mouth shut, leading to speculation that he's speaking about a remake of the PlayStation 1 game. Yoshida has shared no further updates on the Final Fantasy IX bonus items, but it's worth noting that this isn't the first time that Final Fantasy XIV has pulled a stunt like this. So basically, last year, for the 25th anniversary of Final Fantasy IX, they were doing all these different collaborations and everything else like that, and I think that Yoshi P was like, okay, you know, we're going to announce this, it's just going to be a matter of days, it's going to be a matter of time, and then, you know, things kind of caught up, so he's like, oh, it's a secret, you know, we don't really know what's going on. This was in the summertime, whenever he was like, oh, it's a secret, you know, he was like being all coy about it, but then you know that, you know, more stuff was going to be coming, but then come September, I guess he kind of had to retract it. And this is also another interesting thing. Whenever I was looking for an actual article, the actual article of Yoshi P saying that it was a secret, because I remember sharing that on the New RPG News, every single article that I tried to find had a 404 error not found. I think that Square Enix went through and was like, hey, take these articles down. Take all these articles down saying that Yoshi P was talking about this. I couldn't find one on Gamatsu, couldn't find one on IGN, couldn't find one on the Gamer, couldn't find one anywhere. That was the only article that I could find. So come September, we have this statement right here from Yoshi P. He says the Final Fantasy IX collab in 14 had nothing to do with any sort of Final Fantasy IX remake, but wishes the best of luck to any team if they were potentially to do a Final Fantasy IX remake. So this is him doing damage control come September after being all coy and being like, yeah, we don't know why, we're doing this, hee. Yeah, sure, yeah, whatever. We never thought about doing the Final Fantasy IX collaboration in relation to any sort of Final Fantasy IX remake. Sure, Jan, yeah, sure. We had never thought about that in a commercial sense. Yeah, the company whose goal is to make money never thought about that in a commercial sense. Oh no, we're just so altruistic. We're just putting this out just for funsies. Yeah, sure. Of course it might make sense to think about it that way, but we never have. Yeah, he's lying through his friggin' teeth. But of course, in our development team as well, we have a lot of staff here huge fans of Final Fantasy IX. And as you know, Final Fantasy IX has huge volume, it's a big game. If we were to wait for any sort of remake project, we would be waiting, and we'd be thinking, when would we be able to incorporate the essence of Final Fantasy IX and make our homage? So I think potentially if any team was to take on doing a remake for Final Fantasy IX, I would wish them the best of luck. So this is him doing damage control of, oh, you think that Square Enix, this billion-dollar corporation, is actually out there to make money? No, not us. Yeah, So then as the anime kind of gets swept under, as at first he's in the summertime, we don't really know. Then comes the fall time, nothing about that. Then Nate the Hate, the leaker, comes out, and he says, as of last check, it remains in development to my knowledge. So it is in development to Nate the Hate's knowledge, but I need to do a fresh check and see what the more current status is. I did hear a month or so ago that it was in trouble and possibly canceled. Well, so was the anime. It was also in trouble and possibly canceled, but that's been revived. Well, he didn't dismiss any chance of announcement. Plans for the remake could at least be on hold. Just like the anime was on hold. You know what's not on hold? If you go here to the Square Enix website and you look at franchises, yeah, you see what there? The very first one up there is Final Fantasy IX as far as franchises. Yes, the Final Fantasy series is kind of divided. There's a 16, there's a regular, there's a 14 online, there's a 7, but there's also a 9. Why is there a 9? Why not an 8 or a 6 or a 5 or a 4? Why a 9? If you look at Dragon Quest, there isn't even like a separate Dragon Quest 7 section, and that just came out. There isn't a Dragon Quest Erdrick trilogy, and those remakes just came out. Why is there a Final Fantasy IX section? Questionable. Also, if you look at their upcoming releases, the only one that's of note, the only one that actually matters, is The Adventures of Elliot, The Millennium Tales, which is coming out in June 18th. That's it. They got mobile Dissidia, they got mobile Dragon Quest Smash Grow. They have some other stuff going on down here, like, Dragon Quest 12, which has been to be announced for 5-something years now. Kingdom Hearts 4, I'll believe it whenever I see it. Like, they don't have anything else coming out. And last fall, we got a Final Fantasy game. We got Final Fantasy Tactics. And they seem to be releasing a Final Fantasy game every single year. So maybe this fall it will finally be time for Final Fantasy IX to come and shine. So this is really exciting news as far as I am concerned. Again, I like to keep the hope alive. This is one of my favorite games of all time after all, and I do think that it is coming. I definitely think it is there. It's just a matter of time. But now I want to hear from y'all. What do you think about all this? Let me know in the comments, and as always, have a good day.